All right, y'all. So, it's election time, right? So let's talk. I want to give y'all a perspective on, let's just say, what we're dealing with right now in the U.S. Now, before I start, I want y'all to know that I am neither a Democrat or a Republican. I have no affiliation to either party. I fall in the category of an independent voter, meaning that, independents don't really win. So we typically are stuck with the same Democrat or Republican people as everyone else. In fact, there isn't really a party that's major that really supports, that really has all of my political beliefs in it. The closest thing that I find is Rawlsianism. Um, and yeah, so just getting that off the back first. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. Nor am I saying that because I'm secretly a Republican that's not honest about himself. I promise I'm not afraid of any of you. So let me preface that first. I don't have a faction to defend, but let's just say this election shouldn't be close. Now, I want to look at a few things, right? If we take away the depiction of both candidates and just look at their resumes, there's no way in the world this should be a close election, but it is. So I want to talk about the few different reasons why this is what we got. I want to talk about it on a psychological level. I want to talk about it on a spiritual level. And then even after I go through that, I want to talk about why certain people are quiet, why certain people are responding in certain ways. I'm going to try to be as detailed as possible. Now, there's a ton of clips that I would love to implement, but I'll be honest, I'm lazy. I don't feel like uploading all of that stuff. It makes it a lot longer for me to upload these types of videos. So that's also the reason that I don't have my face cam on for this, because it takes me much longer to edit and I have to watch all types of other things, behind the scenes YouTube stuff. So let's talk about this. I guess this really goes back to, let's say 2016, right? The president at that time, President Barack Obama, he was okay, right? I didn't like President Obama. And those of you who can't see me, because, face cam not on for this one, I am black, Native American, African American. I'm black. I like the fact that we had a black president growing up. I didn't necessarily like everything that he and his wife did, which is fair, because I don't think there's a president that can run that's going to please everyone all the time. Nothing wrong with that, but I'll say this. I didn't like Obama, and I was actually kind of ready for him to go, because I'm kind of young. He was president for a long period of my life. Well, I'll say this. Nothing makes you miss Obama like going through a Trump term. Uh, yeah. And I'll be honest, I actually started out as a Trump supporter to a degree, because I just knew that whoever came next wasn't going to be liked simply because they weren't Obama. So this is a time I was a dumb little teenager. I wasn't doing research. I wasn't paying attention. I haven't watched the news since I was in elementary. So I'm just going on thoughts and feelings and vibe checks at this time. I'm honest in that regard. That at that point, I wasn't doing research. I wasn't checking anything. I wasn't even talking to God yet. I didn't even have a relationship with God at the time that I was a Trump supporter. So I kind of enjoyed, it kind of stirred up my ego. I kind of enjoyed the fact that people groups that I disliked at the time were angry that he existed. That was the only, I found him funny. I found him entertaining. In no way, shape, or form did he appeal to me on a moral or on a spiritual level. It was pure ego was the only reason I was supporting him. I thought it was fun. I thought it was funny. So jump cut to the election, right? He said some wild stuff on his way to becoming president in 2016. In fact, his slogan, "Make America Great Again," was rooted in white supremacy. And there's a video. I haven't been able to find the video again. Of course, they would want that off the internet, but it was a video of him at a rally, and he's getting some people thrown out. And they're throwing things at him. People are cussing at him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, back in my day, we used to drag people out in the streets like that. We used to put the water hoses on them. Back in the good old days, we used to send the police dogs after them. Yeah, those were the good old days. We need to make America like that again. We need to make America great again. So for people who haven't seen that footage, I don't blame you for not understanding why people don't like him. But those of us who did, even if we can't find the footage anymore, we knew what we were dealing with, right? Even his supporters at that time knew what they were dealing with. Now, honestly, that election, we didn't vote for him. The Electoral College gave us him. So we, the people, on record, didn't actually vote for him. That's another topic entirely. So jump cut to, let's just stay in this time period before I jump over. Well, we have in the spiritual community, not even spiritual, let's just say in the Christian, charismatic, prophetic community, you have Prophet Kim Clement, who goes out and he prophesies and he says Trump is going to win, and he's going to win he's going to have 2 terms, and they're going to try to impeach him, but it won't work. So this is where this Christ figure, chosen man of God type of archetype came from. It started with a prophet who died the day he took office. He died in 2016 too, Kim Clement. Now, what this did was, in a way, it created a cult where you have people following a regular old guy as if he's a messianic figure, as if he's the savior of the country. Now, this isn't just me being dramatic. I have had many Christians tell me that he is a Moses to our people, that he is a prophet, that he's a this, that he's a that. I've had them tell me this. They've created artwork. They have him splitting the Red Sea and leading America through it. They got him with archangels and everything around him, sitting in the throne room of heaven. Oh, they've done the most. They've built actual altars to him. That's a bit much, right? It's a form of idolatry. So the question then becomes, why are Christians, or specifically, because it's not even all Christians, it's a specific group, why are evangelicals so attached to Trump? What is it about him that makes them cling to him so much? Would you believe me if I said that he was a Trojan horse? Trojan horse, meaning that he's a way for them to act out their deepest desires indirectly. And what I mean by that is he openly has attacked all the groups that they hate already. The gays, the blacks, the Latinos, the Asians, women. He appeals to a certain demographic. Now, am I saying that everyone who voted for Trump hates women, hates black people, hates Latino? No. Not necessarily. A lot of y'all do. But everyone, no. And it's a simple phrase that I've heard. They said, well, not all Trump supporters are racist, but all racists are Trump supporters. And this is something I could back up because I live in the South. It is very common, right? And I'm not talking about something I saw on the internet where it could be fabricated. I'm talking about something I've seen consistently since 2016. Even more so when he was in office. And it dwindled down after he lost in 2020. And started happening again during the last few months surrounding the election, where I often see the Trump flag flown with the Confederate flag. The areas of my surrounding area cities, such as Vidor, Lumberton, Jasper, these areas that are known, Saratoga, Thicket, some of these areas that are known for lynchings, known for hate crimes. They adore this man. So I've found it very common. I've seen it so much to see a Trump flag in the same place as a Confederate flag and in the same place as a Nazi flag. That much I've seen in person. So even if all of them don't agree with all of that, well, he's doing something that's attracting that very specific market. So there's only so much that the appeal of ignorance goes into effect. I've heard many people say, well, when you're dealing with the left or the right, there's extremes on both ends that the people in the middle might not agree with. And to that I agree, but you do have to take into account what your leader is drawing, because Mitt Romney, when he ran, didn't draw out the Confederate flags and the Nazi flags. So I won't put that on Republicans. I don't remember seeing that when Bush was president. That's not something that's just extreme end of Republican. It's not. I'm not, like I said, I'm not Democratic or Republican. I don't have a faction to defend. Even this election isn't even about Democrat versus Republican. There's a lot happening at the same time. So one of the things I want to talk about is 2020, right? Because the question I hear people ask is, or a debate rather, is Trump racist? And some people say, no, I don't think he's racist. I just think he attracts racists, which I find interesting because it's hard to attract something you yourself are not. Birds of a feather flock together. This is the same reason that every time a scandal comes out about someone being involved in human trafficking or sexual abuse, our former president is there with them every single time, or has made a statement. He said that Harvey Weinstein was a good man. He said that Jeffrey Epstein was a good man. He's actually currently campaigning, flying in Epstein's jet. Some of these things shouldn't be up for debate on whether or not they're good or bad. He's been openly praising Hitler and the Nazis as of late. Not just in a written statement, not just in a recording that could be AI, but he's been openly saying how much he adores and admires Hitler. Now, that on its own should tell you that something is off. When I was growing up, pretty much my entire life, Hitler and the Nazis were always bad and there was nothing redeemable about them. There is no other perspective to look at. They are objectively evil and wicked. There's no good thing they could have been doing. There isn't the means justify the ends. There is none of that when discussing that atrocity. The question I bring up is, why is it now being treated as a valid talking point that is now acceptable? It shouldn't be. In fact, not only should it not be, it isn't. So the question then becomes, why are people tolerating it? And this is really where it gets into the spiritual aspects and the psychological aspects. Remember, I called him a Trojan horse earlier. One of the most beautiful things that Trump has done since campaigning, we've been dealing with him for 12 years. Keep that in mind. Well, yeah, it would be 12 years. We're going on a third term. So let's see, 8 years right now. So one of the most beautiful things that he's done, one of the most powerful and impactful things that he's done, is that he's made racist people, white supremacists, sexual abusers, predators, and all these other things very, very comfortable, to the point where you don't actually need discernment, because they're bold enough to tell you that that's what they are and that's what they believe in and that's what they support. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had racist white people tell me Trump's going to send y'all back to Africa. Trump's going to send all the Mexicans back to Mexico. And they're talking to us legal people. Trump's going to ship all you other people out of here. This is going to be a white man's land. I've heard it in person myself. Again, I still often see Trump flag, Confederate flag, Nazi flag flown together. The North may be confused. Foreigners definitely confused. If you don't live in the U.S., some of this stuff you won't get. And if you don't live in the South, there's a lot of this that'll go completely under your nose. So we go to 2020, right? Just addressing the question of, is he actually racist or does he just attract racist people? So many of you might have forgotten, but 2020 actually began with 2 white riots. And what I mean by that, there were 2 occasions at the beginning of the year 2020 in which groups of white people rioted and they tore up the streets and they were fighting police officers. That didn't get much publicity, but it happens. I have some of it on video still. The first one was because of a baseball game. Baseball team lost, so they tore up the city. Flipped buses over, were setting stuff on fire. This was early 2020. The next one happened shortly after lockdown during the pandemic, where they were protesting because they wanted haircuts and they wanted to get their nails done. They wanted to get their hair done, things like that. And again, I don't believe anything's wrong with protesting. That is that First Amendment people like to bring up so much. So we have them protesting and rioting for that, right? And in the footage, you can see them attacking police officers. They're beating on them, spitting on them, pushing them. You know, the police officers didn't react negatively at all. They stood their ground. No one was killed. No one was hurt. No one was beat. Tear gas didn't come out. No rubber bullets. In both of those scenarios, Trump via his Twitter, because you remember back in that day, he was very active on Twitter. He said, these are good people. They just want haircuts. Let them go home. Right? Nothing's necessarily wrong with that by itself. Now, jump cut to later. We get towards the late spring, early summer of 2020. Following a series of killings, murders, where innocent black people were being killed by police officers or other racist white people in the U.S., and no justice was being served. I guess you could say the straw that broke the camel's back was George Floyd, but he wasn't the only one. By the time George Floyd had died, there had already been about 13 situations like it. And we got tired of hashtags and t-shirts. So, for about 2 to 3 days, there were a lot of peaceful protests happening in Minneapolis and the surrounding areas all over the U.S. Peaceful protests for about 2.5 days. And what would happen during those 2.5 days is that police officers would show up with tear gas and rubber bullets and they'd begin to fire on the crowd. After 2 or so days of getting attacked while peacefully protesting, some of those peaceful protesters turned into rioters because they said, well, I guess peace isn't the answer. We're getting attacked. Let's retaliate. So then they started tearing Minneapolis up. And I actually find it very much justified. They tried the peaceful way. It didn't work. They were still getting attacked. Again, I have a lot of this on video myself. Shortly after the riots broke out, other groups of people started getting involved and taking advantage, and looting started to happen, and then other rioters, apart from the original protesters, started showing up just to wreak mayhem and just to steal. Now, I also have footage. There's been court cases. People have already been tried and locked up. People have already lost their jobs. A lot of what you saw on the news being reported was that it was just a bunch of angry black people running around stealing stuff and tearing up the city. That was part of it. But the majority of who was out rioting and looting were white people. Not just white people, but they were police officers and firemen in blackface. The reason that we know this is that many of them already got tried. They got pointed out by their wives on footage. They pretty much got exposed by their families. They already got tried. They're already in jail for doing it. The issue is that the news didn't cover it. So the idea that you get is that black people were just tearing stuff up for no reason. over just this one guy named George Floyd. No, 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 no. George Floyd was about the 14th situation like that we'd had that year. Now, mind you, I think protesting and rioting because innocent people keep getting killed is a great response. I don't think there's a polite way to watch innocent people die in front of you. I don't think it exists. Now, Donald Trump's response, I'm telling a story here, to the Minneapolis riots because the news was presenting it as only black people. He said when the looting starts, the shooting starts. And on multiple occasions, he tried to send the military in to shoot civilians. Fortunately, the people he was trying to get to go do it refused to do it because it's illegal. But he tried. Now, the question then is, well, what happened to these are just good people, let them go home? Because think about it. They're not just protesting for some haircuts. Protesting because lives keep getting taken. And I remember they tried to say that he died of COVID, that George Floyd died of COVID, and then they later ruled that no, his autopsy did show that he had damage to his throat. I can't breathe. Even some of the vandalism had videos of a lot of that, of white people spray painting areas saying Black Lives Matter, I can't breathe. And it was white people. But who got the flack for it? It was black people. So I wanted to tell that story just to show the difference in his approach. When it was white people protesting for some foolery, which they still had the right to do, he said, these are good people, let them go home. He didn't care about police getting respected when it was white people doing the disrespecting. But when black people were fighting because they tried the peaceful protest thing and they were getting shot with rubber bullets, turned violent, so on and so forth, he said, shoot them, kill them. Now, jump cut to his current campaign, he wants to give police officers immunity from prosecution. That is a direct threat to people of color. Statistically, it is more dangerous for us to encounter a police officer than it is for any other group or demographic, specifically black men, in the U.S. to encounter police. It's more dangerous for us because we're more likely to get messed with. We also, even in the prison system, because there's this weak statistic that says that we make up most of the crime. No, we get arrested and imprisoned the most. But among that, we also have the highest rate of exoneration, meaning that it later comes out that we got falsely accused of crimes and did time for them more than any other race as well. You have to look at all the statistics. Now, this is something that everyone knows. I don't think there's an American that genuinely doesn't know that police officers and black people, black men specifically, have a rough history. Not only do they have a rough history, or we have a rough history, we have a rough present. This is something that still happens. This is why the riots were happening. As recent as Breonna Taylor getting killed in her bedroom. Right? These are situations. We had a gentleman get shot on his couch eating ice cream by a female police officer because she went into his house, into his apartment. These are things that other races really don't have to deal with. Not only that, but should that happen, they don't have to worry about no justice being served. Happens to us, it's, oh well, go home, blah, get over it. So these are some things that I wanted to address, right? Because it's election year. This is a part of the campaign. So that's one situation, a clear contrast of similar situation and handled completely different, to the point where he now wants to give police officers immunity and is encouraging them to stop and frisk. So now he's giving them permission to mess with people and giving them immunity from getting in trouble when they mess up. Now, let's jump to the Department of Education. One of the things that he's bringing up is that he wants to get rid of the Department of Education overall. Now, why does he not like education? Is it because people are being mistaught in schools? Is it because he has a love for the people and want people to grow and learn more? No. He actually said that the main reason behind it is because he doesn't want people to learn Black history. That, again, is footage we have. Now, for all of this, I'm not giving you articles that I read. These are coming from videos I've seen over the last several years of him directly and openly saying what his plans are for people in my demographic. They recently asked him, so what would you do if, like, he was talking about cutting funding and defunding certain schools? He said, so the guy asked him, he said, what would you do if there's a part of the curriculum and they're teaching about slavery and they're teaching about the Jim Crow era and civil rights movement? He said, we won't send them money. You have to understand how evil and wicked that is, to remove history because that history is uncomfortable. Even this idea of CRT, critical race theory, is just a rebranding. All CRT is history. It's just putting in the parts of history that often get left out in the US. See, the thing that a lot of people don't get, I won't give it to Democrats or Republicans, just people, right? Can y'all just be people? Something that people don't really get or seem to understand is that history isn't there for you to like it or dislike it. History is there as a record for what has happened, hopefully for you to learn from it. Which means in order for history to actually be effective, you need the gruesome stories. You need the uncomfortable events. Otherwise, you end up with generations like we have today that are comfortable telling Black people, well, why don't y'all just get over it? Why don't y'all just stop looking for the handout, work together, and build your community? See, this is what happens when you take things like the Tulsa Massacre out of curriculums. Makes us seem like we're just moping around and haven't already thought about being self-sufficient in our communities. No, there's a historical pattern that every time we do that, every time we build up our communities, they get burned to the ground. They get flooded intentionally so that we can't even rebuild in that area. There are massacres that happen, people get killed, and it's happened every single time, as recent as either earlier this year or last year. Popular boxer right now, Tank Davis, Gervonta Davis, he bought, I believe it was his neighborhood. They burned it down the next day after he announced that he bought it. So that still happens today. So the question of, well, why don't y'all just invest in y'all communities? Because racism still exists. So these are things that you might not know if you don't live in the States, especially if you don't live in the South. But to a certain extent, the appeal of ignorance is kind of disrespectful because everyone kind of knows what's going on, even if they don't like it. And I've had a lot of people tell me, I've sat down and had conversations with many leaders who are white, and there's a few different responses I've gotten. They'll ask me, well, they'll say, well, the reason I don't like to look at it is because it makes me angry, and I don't like feeling angry because then I start to feel responsible, and then I want to go, it makes me hate my own race for what they did to y'all. Now, I understand that, but it's different, right? You have the privilege of being able to shut it out because it's not happening to you. That's not love. So, one of the other things that I've gotten is, some of them would directly tell me, oh, I don't really care what y'all are going through. I just didn't want you to think that I was racist. Which I kind of feel like not caring at all is worse in some regard than just being racist. Made me lose a lot of respect and a lot of trust for some people who I was once close with. Because now this is still having to do with the election, right? I didn't go off topic. I'm painting a picture for you, as I'm allowed to do. Everyone sees the world differently. But in this case, these are facts that I'm giving, not just opinion. I'm giving a perspective, and I'm giving facts along with the perspectives. So as you can understand, I'm not a Trump supporter anymore. So for my mystics who ask me, well, have you ever asked God about Trump? I'm like, I ask God and the rest of the royal family about just about everything. Of course I have. They're actually the ones who changed my heart and got me to realize that I was supporting a hate group, that I was supporting some evil and wicked stuff under the guise of maturity. So I know the game. I used to play it, and I used to be good at it. It was them who got me to realize who and what I was supporting at that time. Now, this is one of the few areas of my past I'm still somewhat embarrassed by. I still cringe at when I think back that, yeah, that wasn't okay. There's other words that I would use to describe myself at that time. I don't think YouTube likes certain words, so I'll leave that be. So I understand the mentality, I understand the spirit, I understand all of that behind why seemingly spiritual people would follow behind someone, would support someone, would advocate someone who has none of the qualities of the God that we were claiming to be in support of. I understand it because I used to do it. Now, thankfully, I grew out of that stuff. Like during the 2020 election, I didn't like Trump or Biden. I considered them quite equal. For once, you could say that they're about even. Now, what I found annoying more than anything is that Christians were still pretending as if Trump was a messiah figure. You can't leave that out. There's a cult that's still in operation today, or a clan spelled with a K, that's still in operation today. So I would see certain verbiage, and they see a lot of Christians that I know are cowards. So they wouldn't directly just say, I support Trump and I want y'all to support Trump. No, no, no. Instead, they would try to fake it into a prophecy. They would try to make it seem like God said, this is who I want y'all to support. You have people who, the kingdom of God is partnering with the Republicans. We're going to snuff out all the evil by never letting Democrats have, like, they would spiritualize something that was very much carnal and fleshy. Because they were cowards. Instead of just saying, I don't like Democrats, I'm a Republican, and I want my people to vote Republican, they manipulated, they lied, which became kind of crazy once certain things became ultimately clear. One of the other Trojan horses that they were using, apart from just Trump, they, in a way, these same wicked people use the Republican Party the same way. The idea of being conservative versus liberal, or right wing versus left wing. They use this idea of abortion to pretend that they care about kids, and even more so, racist people for the first time ever. And please understand, I don't hate anybody when I say this, but this is just true. It seems like every election, white people pretend to care about black people for the first time ever, as if they're doing us a favor by voting against abortion. I've heard many people that don't like Negroes, don't like me because I'm black, tell me, oh no, Democrats are racist because they support Planned Parenthood and that kills a bunch of black babies every year. That's super racist. Oh, Obama was the most racist president we ever had. Let's talk about that for a moment, right? That is one of the most racist things I've heard people say, because former presidents have actually owned slaves, and you pick the one black guy to be the most racist out of all of them. Y'all embarrass me sometimes. But when it comes to the issue of abortion, it's an area that the government itself kind of plays with people on, because the options people are looking for are never on the ballot. In fact, this election, neither candidate is pro-life. Both Trump and Harris have both said that they're pro-choice. Both of them have. So there's not a president currently pushing for it. Trump has openly said that he's in support of the three exceptions, that being rape, incest, and the life of the mother. Harris has said the same thing. They're both pro-choice. Now, here's the thing about it all as an outright abortion ban, right? For one, abortion is a tricky topic in general. For one, I don't believe it should ever even be a political issue because it's really a social issue. And the reason you kind of have the Christian backing is because they're cowards. They're trying to use the government to reach the people instead of reaching the people. In a way, they're trying to get the government to do their job for them. But if it's about life, right? Pro-life is usually what they call themselves, and they're not. They're pro-birth. They're pro, yeah, in a way it's pro-death, it's pro-punishment, it's pro-control, but it's not pro-life, and here's the reason why. Recent studies, as early as June, that I've seen, came out saying that in all the places where there's a complete ban on abortion, the infant mortality rate has gone up. Specifically in Texas, has gone up 8%. What does this mean? More kids are dying with an abortion ban. What does that mean? Abortion bans don't work. Complete abortion bans do not save lives. So if you're actually pro-life, you understand that that's not the way to go about it. Because the idea that people have about abortion, and I know because I used to have this same perspective, is that it's a form of birth control, in which some people do use it for that, unfortunately. Where it's the idea of two consenting adults having unprotected sex and then aborting the baby because they don't want to raise a baby. That I understand people being upset with. I understand the idea of it being immoral. However, the government should never interfere that deep and that personal into people's lives, especially with something that tricky. Because complete abortion bans also include miscarriage as abortion as well. There's already been a lady who's been arrested for having a miscarriage. Not an abortion, a miscarriage. Complete abortion bans kill women, they hurt women, and they kill more kids. Which means complete abortion bans don't work. Now, if you want to say, what about these term limits? How long someone can be before they give birth? Currently, it's illegal in every state to have an 8th or 9th month abortion. It's illegal currently in every state. Which means you can't actually fight against something. You can't vote against something that, again, neither candidate is promoting. Now, this comes into the Trump cult. And honestly, this specific election has been kind of unfair. When it was Trump versus Biden, they cared about mental decline and elderly decay up until Biden dropped out. And then you have the other dementia patient up there losing his mind, freezing on stage. See, the thing is, Trump and Biden both have the same type of dementia. They both have frontal lobe dementia. I consider them both two racist pedophiles who should never have run the country. But it is what it is. Biden's about done. Trump had his time. I don't believe he needs to have another one. But once the baton was handed over to Harris, all of a sudden the media no longer cared about elderly mental decline. And let's go ahead and debunk this myth that the media is out to get Trump. They're not. Most of what he's done has never made it to the news. I have full videos of some of the crazy and wild and weird things that he's done over the last 2 months. None of it has made it to your news stations. None of it made it into articles. This is because, in a way, the media is protecting him. Yeah, it seems like people don't like him. They have a good reason to not like him. Like I said way earlier, admiring Nazis isn't something that should be liked ever. There is no other perspective on that to be respected. That's not a difference of opinion. That's not a difference of perspective. Nazis are objectively evil. Hitler, objectively evil. No redeeming qualities. You don't admire Nazis, especially when you're running for office. But what happened is, because of his mental decline, he's gotten to a point where he's starting to say the quiet parts out loud. He accidentally told a room full of people that he's not a Christian, but he likes Christians and he wants Christians to vote for him. He's smart enough to know how gullible Christians are and knows that they still view him as somewhat of a Messiah figure, that he's their guy. Well, let's get into policies, because I haven't really talked about Harris all too much. I've kind of been laying into Trump for a bit. Now, when she first stepped into the position, I didn't like her at first. And I understand D.L. Hughley very much, because I was similar. I didn't like her just because I didn't like Biden. And I assumed that she would be no different than him. I assumed they were about the same. Certain questions are easy to ask when you don't do any research. Like, oh, how come she didn't do nothing all these years? Well, one, she's vice president, not president. Greater question would be to ask Trump why he didn't do a lot of these amazing things that he's now promising to do when he had full control over the House and was president, not vice president. Speaking of vice presidents, there's a reason why his former vice president is not campaigning with him. He tried to have Mike Pence killed because Mike Pence would not overturn the 2020 election. The vice president. Find it interesting that none of the people that worked closest with him are supporting him now. They're all supporting Harris. Pretty much the entire military is not supporting Trump this term. They're pretty much begging the U.S. citizens as we speak to not vote for him because they worked with him up close. They know that all of them are saying unfit to lead. Now, this is the first time that generals and admirals are coming out and saying, please do not elect this guy. Now, I remember I was in ROTC back in the day. I was still in high school when he won the first time. And I remember before he won, we were referred to civilian officers in the military by the honorable insert name here. And when he won, the military took honorable off. So now it's just Donald Trump instead of the honorable Donald Trump. They took that off because it didn't sound right. The military didn't like that. So I understand, right? Getting back to Harris. I didn't like her at first. But then I started to do some research and I realized that these little Facebook memes aren't based on research. These talking points aren't based on facts. When you talk about what has she done to help the black community, specifically for the dummies out there who pretend to be pro-black, but are really just misogynist. When they asked the question of what has she specifically done that's helped black people, she was the first one to mandate that all of the officers in her county wear body cams. That's one of the best things a person in a position of authority could do. She was the first one to do it. Now, mind you, even when it talks about Biden, what has Biden done? What did they do while they were in office that benefits black people? They passed the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act in 2022. That's a great thing for us. Greater punishments for lynchings, because they still happen. So on one side, you have a person who is, keeping police officers accountable. And let's debunk this myth as well. Because there's two statistics that got mixed together and just became talking points because people are lazy. They don't like doing real research. They said that she locked up thousands and thousands of people for marijuana charges. No. Only 45 people went to jail for marijuana charges under her lead. In fact, every year that she was in control, the incarceration rate went down. The other thing, so what about these thousands of people that she locked up? those were rapists, those were pedophiles, those were predators, those were con men, those were people who deserved to be not just in jail, but under the jail. Those are her thousands. She was a prosecutor. That's what prosecutors do. They lock up people who actually did bad things. It's her job. She did a good job. What about this idea that she slept her way to the top? No, she got 25 million votes. She didn't sleep with 25 million people. A lot of these things are just talking points. You have to use your brain. You have to pay attention. So let's pivot. I mentioned black community for a moment. Let's talk. Everyone excuse yourself. I want to talk to the black community for a bit, So what did I mean when I said that people pretending to be pro-black and they're really just misogynist? Well, you have otherwise intelligent people focusing all their time into heckling Harris only when they're claiming to not be Democrat or Republican. They're claiming not to be for the Republicans or the Democrats. They are saying that they don't plan to vote, but they're only heckling her. Now, back in 2020, because let's talk about me. If you follow me on other social media, I only say bad things about Trump, right? So why is that? Why am I calling them out for something that technically I'm doing? Does that make me a hypocrite? Maybe. But no, here's why. Back in 2020, I was heckling both Trump and Biden because I saw them as equal, because I don't have a faction that I'm defending. I'm not a part of a party. Now, fairness isn't just about, okay, I mentioned this person's wrong, now I gotta go dig up some dirt. No. It's about holding them accountable equally. It's just that Trump does a lot more evil, and most of it doesn't get publicized. Most of what he does never makes it to the news, and his followers don't watch his full interviews or his full specials. They don't pay attention. So all they get is a 1 minute clip, a 30-second clip, and think they've got gold. No. I've sat down, I've watched full interviews, I watched full hour-long, so on and so forth, right? The reason I stopped heckling Biden in public, even though I didn't like Biden, I still don't like Biden all too much, because he's the one who's the reason why felons can't vote. That was a bill he passed decades and decades ago. But the reason why I stopped is because I noticed if I tell a joke about Biden, everyone laughs. If I tell a joke or I heckle Trump, here come his defenders. And these defenders oftentimes claim to not be of either party, all this other stuff. And I noticed a trend, and I was like, okay, it's okay to make fun of Biden. It's not okay to make fun of Trump. Let me not make fun of Biden in public for that reason. So I'd see funny stuff on the internet, and I'd just save it to my phone and laugh in private. Now, jump cut to when you switch to Harris. Oh, this election just got so much easier because now they're not even. Right? They gave us the option between someone who wants to erase my people's history, encouraging more police brutality specifically towards us, giving them immunity so we can't have justice, along with all the other things in Project 2025, which they're now trying to call Agenda 47, it's same thing. So on his side, we have all of this chaos, all of this open evil. It's not things I don't have to conspire. I don't have to dig up stuff. I'm going by things that he's openly saying in public. Not some secret records, not a private conversation, not a supposedly, all things that he himself have said on camera more recently. All of this evil versus just a woman. And this is the point where I call the black community, specifically the men in the black community, some cowards. Because they're pretending to be intelligent, and their only reason for not supporting Harris or not voting is because she's a woman. So they're making songs about her not being black, all this other stuff. If she wasn't black, it wouldn't be a talking point. This is the one time people pretend to not understand what an interracial child is. Daddy black, mama Indian. She black. Her dad's mom, aka grandmother, blackity black, super Jamaican. She grew up black. Indian mom, black dad. She's black. Shouldn't be a conversation. Y'all are taught. See, this is why I call nonsense with the black community, this black conscious community. On one hand, y'all are over here worried about her accents and if she's black. Meanwhile, Trump is talking about lynching you Negroes. Meanwhile, nothing about that. Y'all are supposed to be unbiased. I thought y'all said y'all hate them both. I would believe that someone who's actually all for black power, black consciousness, so on and so forth, would care more about a white supremacist openly telling you he wants to erase your history than just a woman. So this is the truth. Why do you see so many black people, specifically the men, either supporting Trump or saying they're not voting while heckling Harris? Misogyny. It's the only time that you're going to see otherwise intelligent people, otherwise pro-black people support a white supremacist. It's in the area of misogyny. It's the idea that I don't want a woman to have authority over me. And that's it. I've had a few people be honest enough to tell me that directly. The others, they tap dance and they play games. Even some of these bigger teachers, some of them I like, some of them I like outside of this election rhetoric. And that's all it is. It's just because she's a woman. Because when you try them by policies, you remove the name and the face and just look at what they're planning to do. This election shouldn't be close. You look at the character. You look at the spiritual applications. You look at the economy. Let's talk about the economy. Inflation is actually down right now. Inflation isn't up. So why are prices still high? Price gouging. It's been that way. Now, why the change in prices, right? Why is the economy so rough? Something you kind of learn in like middle school and high school. So I know y'all was sleep in class. Is that for the most part, economies are inherited. A fair amount of Obama's run was Bush's economy. All of Trump's term was Obama's economy. These 4 years have been Trump's economy. So the economy that you say you want back is only ruined by the man you're trying to reelect. This is simple stuff. In fact, a lot of the things that MAGA Republicans, the people in the cult, are pretending to care about are things that Trump actually caused. So this is why I say there's only two types of Trump supporter. The guilty and the gullible. Either you're predatory and you hate who he hates, or you're actually stupid enough to not know that he's lying to you directly. You ever heard of a bold-faced liar? This is what we got here. See, when I was in the military, they taught us something. They told us we'd be going through drills, and they tell us if you answer quickly and you answer loudly and seem confident, most people won't question what you say. They would tell us this because they would randomly quiz us on certain things, and they want an answer immediately. And you would get points taken off. You might get marked wrong just because it took you 3 seconds to think about it and recite it rather than just start talking the moment they said it. So they'd say it's better for you to just start talking the moment they ask you the question, and you say it loud, you say it proud. You're less likely to get marked wrong for it because the person grading you most likely not paying attention. This has actually been Trump's whole thing. He's been openly lying about things that are in the public records. So even if you don't trust news sources, the records themselves still exist and you can see them for itself. A good example of this is that he said that he donated more money to HBCUs than Obama and Biden. This is factually incorrect. You can look up the records on how much money, who donated, and which presidency donated what. Trump didn't donate much at all in comparison to the one who came before him and the one who came after him. But he said it so confidently and he said it so boldly, his supporters are now going around saying that, and it's not true. Well, how come they were only fact-checking Harris? How come they were only fact-checking Trump and not fact-checking Harris? Well, Trump lied a lot more than she did. In fact, a lot of the things that people have been arguing about are things that he and Vance have both admitted that they lied and made up. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. J.D. Vance said, I made that story up and I'll make up more if I have to. His words, not mine. Donald Trump recently on video said, I don't know if it was ever true. I just saw it. I saw it on TV. I saw something. I don't know. He's like, what about the goose? What about the duck? There were pictures circulating of a black man holding, it was like a goose or a duck, and they're like, see, it's a pet. They're eating wild animals. No, that was animal control from the city picking up a dead animal out the street to dispose of the body. He said Haitians were doing it. What about this lady we found? It seemed like she attacked and might have ate a dog. Well, she was South African. The problem with attaching races to this is that you can't tell a person's race in this capacity or their ethnicity just by looking at them. That's why he only targets Latinos and black people, because you can see them, or Asians. There's been he's had no issue with any of the white immigrants that come here the same way as the Mexicans do. No smoke for the Italians, no smoke for the British. In fact, he openly encouraged Russians to come over, give birth on U.S. soil so that they could gain citizenship just a few years back during his presidency. So why is it only the Mexican border? Oh, he wants to stop the fentanyl from coming in. No. All of the major fentanyl busts have been white male U.S. citizens, not illegal Mexicans. It's been white men every time. Yikes. So what about J.D. Vance's mom? Well, J.D. Vance is a liar. His mother became addicted to pharmaceuticals. She worked in the hospital, and she would steal prescription drugs and got addicted to them. It had nothing to do with illegal aliens. It had nothing to do with Mexicans. In fact, the only reason she's alive now is because she's on that Obamacare that Trump and Vance are trying to get rid of. And Trump only has the concept of a plan to replace it. You ever heard the phrase, if it's not broke, don't fix it? Yeah, leave it alone. Because unlike Harris, who's only had just a few months to campaign for president, Trump has been in this for 9 years. He's been in this for a decade. He still doesn't have a replacement. I vividly remember him saying he was gonna replace it during the first week of his first presidency, right? Everyone else remember that? I do. No, y'all gotta be real with yourselves. Y'all gotta pay attention. Get out of the cult. Oh, something else, right? Why not, right? Y'all like acronyms, right? Make America Great Again, MAGA. It means witch. It means deceiver. It means confusion. It means discord. It means destruction. It means evil. It means wicked in several languages. It means lies in several languages. And you can look it up yourself. So yeah. Y'all are in a coven. Or really, at this magnitude, it's a hive. I like the idea of a hive because it explains that group a lot better. And understand, Republicans, I'm not talking about you. Real Republicans aren't Trump supporters. No. Real Republicans aren't Trump supporters. Matter of fact, as an independent voter, I would love the opportunity to vote for a Republican It's just that the last 3 elections have been the same maniac you keep trying to loose on us. Y'all can do better than him. There are good Republicans that y'all have out there who can do a great job as president. Y'all have people who can replace them. Please stop sending us him. If Republicans, if you want to win an election, find someone other than the openly racist angry man. The guy who talks about lynching. Speaking of lynching, right? There's 2 situations I want to talk about. There's the Central Park 5, who are actively, they just opened a lawsuit on Trump again for defamation when he lied and said that they pleaded guilty to a crime that they didn't commit. They did not. Not just that, Trump said that they should be executed. When it came out that they were innocent, he stood by his statement and still says that they should be killed. That's called lynching. Another more broad, another greater example of lynching happened last month. A gentleman, unfortunately deceased now, by the name of Marcellus Williams. He was wrongly convicted of a crime that even the prosecuting attorney and the victim both said he shouldn't be executed for. New evidence came up showing that he was not the person who was responsible. And pretty much every politician involved not only was a Republican, they were Trump supporters or they were Trump appointed. Right? So when it went to Missouri, because this is where it happened at, the governor turned off his phone because 1.5 plus million people were calling to request them to not execute him on that day because new information. You have someone on death row. You don't get to undo it if you kill them. 1.5 million people, at the very least, called out to have him postpone the execution so they could evaluate the new evidence. He cut his phone off and said, I'm not doing it. It would cost too much money to redo that trial. That's called a lynching. When it went to the Supreme Court, the 3 Democrats, it was 9 people involved. The 3 Democrats voted to redo the trial and examine the new evidence. You 3 Democrats, I respect you. Thank you for trying. All 6 Republicans voted to kill him. That's 7 people. Well, all 6 of those Republicans were Trump appointed. Even the governor of Missouri, Mr. Mike Parson, not to be mistaken by the amazing gentleman mystic from the UK, Mike Parsons, not to be mistaken, he's a Trump supporter, one of Trump's close friends. So it took 8 of them to lynch one person. That is a lynching. That is a killing. We can't stand for that. That's not okay in any regard. There is no other perspective. There is no other way to look at it. This isn't a difference of opinion. Lynching is wrong. Lynching is evil. Now, I don't believe all Republicans actually like lynching. Trump supporters, yeah, most of y'all do, because that's what your God believes in. And even though they give the presentation of being followers of Jesus Christ, or in some cases even Yeshua, they present themselves as kingdom people. No. Their God is Trump. And you know this because everything that he says, they repeat. Anyone who's done this before, you know this to be true. You have a conversation with one Trump supporter, you've had a conversation with all of them. They share the same talking points. They have the same speech pattern. They talk the same. They use the same rhetoric. Trump says big pharma. They say big pharma. Trump says Kamala. They say Kamala. They talk like him. They talk about what he talks about. Why didn't she fix it? Why didn't she fix? They just repeat whatever he repeats. They're sharing a brain cell and he has the brain. And his brain has dementia. So if you haven't already and you've made it through this, please go look through Project 2025. Yes, that is the real plan that Trump has for the people. He has denied it in public, but been proven that he's lying about not having to do with it because it started to get negative attention. Agenda 47, Project 2025 are the same thing. They're no different. Agenda 47 is just Project 2025 with a few things taken out of it. It's no different. He claims to not know the guy that's over the Heritage Foundation. They're both friends of Epstein. They've been friends for a long time. There's videos of them together talking about how great each other is. They know each other. They're friends. Let's see. Am I missing anything? Oh, right. This is something I wanted to bring up. Why do people hate Biden so much? Oh, it's simple. Racism. This goes back to Obama. The Obamas, first black presidents that they tell us that we had. Verdict is out on some of the earlier few because, no cameras. But Barack Obama's the first black president that they tell us that we had. That made all of the white supremacists mad. That's kicking a hornet's nest. So they pretended that everything that he did was the worst thing ever. Even though it benefited them, it still benefits them. They actually currently beg for his economy back while pretending that he's the Antichrist and that he's the worst thing to ever happen to America. They blame him for division instead of their own racism. The country was never more divided than when Obama was president. Yeah, because y'all racist. Y'all hated him because of the color of his skin. And yes, a lot of people did vote for him the first time because he was black. But honestly, he did a good job. In comparison to who we had come after and before, he did a good job. I'd give Barack Obama a good 7 out of 10. I'd give Bush a good 5. I'd give Biden a good 6, maybe a 5, 5.5. Trump, he gets a 2 from me. I never want to experience another Trump term again. I'd take a term where Biden was completely impeached and couldn't do anything over another Trump term. That was ridiculous. So the reason that people don't like Biden is because he was Barack Obama's vice president. So they just see him as another Obama term. Their hatred for the Negro passed on to Mr. Biden. And now it's passing on to Kamala. So they see her as a 4th Obama term. And really, they're nothing alike. Biden didn't run his term the way Obama ran his. And Kamala's already said she has no plans to run her presidency the way that Biden ran his. They're individuals. The vice president's job is to do whatever the president tells them to do. That's it. Because they're not the president. President die, they can become the president and then they get their way, but before then they don't have much power. They get to vote. That's about it. So if I were to encourage you to do anything, it would be to do real research. Get out of the echo chambers, get away from the yes men, get out of the faction wars. This election is not about Democrat versus Republican. Democrats and Republicans, hear me well, this is not about you being a Democrat or you being a Republican. Shoot, there's even Republicans for Harris campaigning now. It's about what's actually best when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the character, when it comes to the social structures, when it comes to everything that matters. Trump isn't that guy. So what I would love, and I want y'all to understand, I'm not saying this to be funny, get a better Republican so that y'all can have another win. Y'all want one. Y'all want another win? Get a better Republican. Y'all have good Republicans. Y'all do. I want to believe good Republicans exist. Y'all just have to stop giving us Trump. Don't bring me another Nazi supporter. Right? Y'all can't let that be what the extreme of y'all party. That should not be tolerated. Can't be considered one of the extremes of us. Y'all need to disown them. That should never be tolerated. That's not okay. The guy that's currently campaigning now is openly praising Hitler. Should never have office. That should be career ending. That should be campaign ending. It should be over for him. Let's see. I think I covered all the important parts. So yeah. If you're new here, yes, I am very much political. I don't believe that our spiritual status should make us tuck our head under the sand and our tail between our legs and pretend that important things aren't happening around us. I question the person whose spirituality tells them that lynching is okay, that racism is okay, that misogyny, human trafficking, pedophilia, all these other things are no big deal. And that God's just using the foolish things to confound the wise. Are you kidding me? No, that's an open agent of evil. Nothing Christ-like about it. Y'all don't realize, Christians, hear me good. Because I do love y'all. I'm not one of y'all anymore, but I do love y'all. You have to understand how bad y'all make y'all God look. When the rest of the world sees you campaigning someone who's nothing like the God that you're talking about. See, y'all will use Proverbs 6:16 to make up an argument against abortion, but will ignore the first part, which is a lying tongue. 6 things the Lord hates, 7 are an abomination. A lying tongue is the first one, and y'all jump over that, and it's like, he's not perfect. No, he's a liar. A bold-faced liar. Lying is not okay. Getting something wrong and being a liar are 2 different things. Being misinformed and being a liar, 2 different things. He's a liar. An open liar. He's openly told you that he's lied and will lie again. J.D. Vance has said that he's a liar. They've both openly said that they lied in the past and plan to do so again. Again, even if you don't trust any of the news sources or articles, you can go find records from the source. He lies about just about everything. So for my undecided voters, people who aren't planning to vote, people who didn't know who to vote, I think it's pretty clear. Yeah. And I said this on Facebook, I'll say it here. You are not less than a man because you have a female president. You're less than a man if you allow the fact that she's female to be the reason that you did not vote. Or the reason that you voted for someone who admires Hitler. That's your fault. That is a personality flaw. That is a character flaw. But please go do real research. Pay attention. Get out of the echo chambers. Get out of the cult. Leave the covens. And again, for my people who weren't planning on voting, if you're as tired of hearing about Trump every day as I am, go out and vote. Here's the thing. If he wins, you got to hear about him every day for 4 more years, at least. If he loses this election, we don't have to talk about the grumpy orange man ever again. So let's go out and vote. Everyone who's tired of hearing about Trump, it's been almost a decade. We're tired of hearing about him, right? Go vote. He loses this time, we don't have to worry about him again. No more no more of that. We don't have to hear about him anymore. He doesn't have to be in our verbiage, our language. Don't have to reference him. So with that being said, y'all be blessed. Y'all take care. My comment section should be fun. Until next time, y'all be blessed. Later.